Hello, good afternoon, welcome. This is Ansuya from Bahrain. I'm doing small introduction to Sister Judy. So Judy Rodgers, today afternoon, we have Judy Rodgers with us. She's from USA. She's based in the Peace Village in the USA in the Catskill Mountains. So she has been a meditator for over 25 years. And basically, she's a communication strategist. And actually, I didn't know that until a few months I've been working with her. And she has excellent communication skills, actually. And she basically studies consciousness and how the quality of our awareness affects what we think, see, do, and how we engage with others. In 2009, she co-authored a book on altruism called Something Beyond Greatness. She has supported the Brahma Kumaris International Call of Time dialogues and retreats for leaders since 1998. So today, our topic is how to restore and refresh. So she's going to give us various ideas and tips how to refresh and restore. And in the end of the session, the last 15 minutes, we are going to have Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can just put your questions in the chat box. And now we leave to Sister Judy to take on and take us on this journey, how to restore and refresh. Thank you.
Thank you, Ansia. So I don't see very many of you. I would love to see more of you. It's a little easier to talk to you if I can see you. So if you're able to, yeah, nice. All right. Hi, how are you?
There are 200 people. 200.
Well, however many I can take a look at here. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's a lot easier to talk to faces than to names. So thank you. Nice to see you. So we are in such an interesting moment. And can you see me all right? I see I've got sun coming in on me. Can you, all right,
Yeah,
and you can hear,
yes,
you can hear okay?
Yes,
All
yes,
right.
absolutely.
All right, good. Okay, so I know the promise was that I was going to help you restore and refresh, right? I think we will do that, but I want to direct it a little bit more to the moment that we're in, because we're in a really unusual moment. I don't think we've ever had a time when the whole globe was simultaneously having the same experience. So I just think that noticing the moment we're in and looking at what are the opportunities of this moment is really useful. What occurs to me is that we have become very extroverted, and I think that's true everywhere. It's certainly true in the US, but I think it's true everywhere. We have oriented ourselves to going out to get inner experience. So if I want to feel like I belong, if I want to feel loved, if I want to feel connected, I would go to a coffee shop, or I would go shopping, or I would go to a restaurant. I would orient outside. You know, many of us would go outside to get the experience of happiness inside. And so now that we've been told that we can't go outside, I don't know about each of you, but in New York, even though I'm up in the mountains, we are still told to stay home and wear masks and all of that. So, so here we are inside, and yet if we're not careful, the body can be inside, but the mind can still be outside. So how do we bring ourselves to this moment as a real opportunity, a real chance to to experience something we've never experienced before, a sense of real power, real contentment, real happiness. So that's what I want to talk with you about a little bit today. And so we're going to talk about five ways. I'm sticking with the five, but 5 ways that we can get benefit from the moment that we're in. And as Ansia said, if you've got questions, put them in the chat, and I'll try to finish in time so we've got plenty of time to talk about that. So I want to talk about the very first opportunity. So the first opportunity is remember who you are. Remember who you are. Now, when we're leading that normal extroverted life, we are usually in the awareness of the role that we're playing, of the responsibilities we have to other people, the bodies that we're in, making them beautiful, making them strong, making them healthy, feeding them, sustaining these families we're a part of, doing our jobs, even if we're at home doing our jobs. So we tend to be oriented to that identity. But for the next 4 things I'm going to offer you after this one, they all rely on this first opportunity. So the first opportunity is to remember who you really are. And you know who you really are. If you've been hanging out with Sister Aruna and Sister Ansia, then I'm sure you've spent some time thinking about being the being inside the body, the being that is having the experiences, the being that's making the choices, the being that's kind of driving the life. So that the more you return to that, the better everything else will work. So I'm a point of light, I'm eternal. I have my original nature is beautiful. Originally, I am peaceful. Originally, I am kind. Originally, I am blissful, happy, joyful. Originally, I am generous. That is my nature. And if you have ever seen a newborn baby, the baby doesn't ever show up angry. The baby might have colic, might have an upset stomach, but fundamentally, the baby's not angry and the baby's not sad. The baby shows up just the way it is, pure, happy, peaceful, joyful, which is why we love them, right? Why we want to hold them, because they've got all of that natural vibrance and joy. And so when we turn inside, so if we pull our eyes away from the window and away from the social media screen, away from our phones, and we turn inside, of course, if you do that right now, you won't hear the rest of what I'm going to share with you. But once we're done, if you turn yourself inside, and even when we're together on the screen, then lots of things become possible that weren't possible before. You can check your heart. The minute you check your heart, you know how you're doing. No matter how you've been distracting yourself, if you check your heart, you will know if you are sad, if you are happy, if you're carrying some kind of blame or unhappiness, if you're afraid or anxious. All of that lives in the heart. The minute you check your heart, you get a pulse right away. When you turn inside, you can check your mind. Is it stable or is it jumping all over the place? So when you turn inside, all kinds of things become obvious to you and all kinds of things become possible. So the starting point for what we're going to do today is that I am the one inside. I am the eternal light. I'm the self inside. I'm the being inside. So move yourself away for a minute from your kind of outer identity and take a look inside, because that's where we're going to work today. So that's the first one. Remember who you are. Now the second one, I don't know how many of you would remember, there was a great book back in the 60s called Be Here Now by Ram Dass. And that's the second point. Be here now and accept each moment with no judgment. So, you know, all we have is this minute right now. All we have is the moment we're in. We know that. But if we spend that moment thinking about how I screwed up yesterday, I made this dumb thing that I did, I regret that, I replay that, or I can't believe what someone said to me yesterday, it's really bothering me still what they said. Or if I spend it anxious about tomorrow, I'm trying to read the tea leaves on stock markets and economies and coronavirus, and I'm trying to anticipate what's going to happen. All of that, I lose the moment that I'm in. So the idea that we have to be in the moment we're in, and not only be in this moment, but accept whatever happens. Train the mind to be present and to accept whatever happens. Now, I've got a story here for you that I bet you've heard before. I'm going to read it to you anyway because it makes the point I'm trying to make here. And it's a Chinese proverb. It seems that Chinese always have better stories. So here it goes. A farmer and his son had a beloved stallion who helped the family earn a living. One day, the horse ran away, and their neighbors exclaimed, "Oh, your horse ran away. What terrible luck." The farmer replied, "Well, maybe so, maybe not. We'll see." A few days later, the horse returned home, leading a few wild mares back to the farm as well. And the neighbors shouted out, "Your horse has returned," and brought several horses home with him. What great luck. And the farmer replied, "Well, maybe so, maybe not. We'll see." Later that week, the farmer's son was trying to break one of those mares, and she threw him to the ground, breaking his leg. The villagers cried, "Oh, your son broke his leg. What terrible luck." And the farmer replied, "Well, we'll see." A few weeks later, soldiers from the National Army marched to town, recruiting all the able-bodied boys for the army. They did not take the farmer's son, who was still recovering from his injury. And the friends shouted, "Your boy is spared. What tremendous luck." To which the farmer replied, "Well, maybe so, maybe not. We'll see." So the moral of this story is, of course, that no event in and of itself can truly be judged as good or bad, lucky or unlucky, fortunate or unfortunate, but only time will tell. And so back to this second point, we have to accept whatever happens with a sense of, let's see if it's good or bad. I would imagine all of you have had the experience of when something happened that just felt so wrong and so off and like such a problem that turned out to be one of the great things that happened to you, that opened a door or introduced you to a new era. So we don't know when something is good or something is bad. So the idea is to accept that. Now, a saying that you often hear, and again, from the Chinese, I think from the Buddhist, is that the world doesn't need our suffering, right? It has suffering enough of its own. It doesn't need us to add our suffering. It's the same with our friends. So when something happens, the horse leaves, we tend to join them with that sad feeling. "Oh, I'm so sorry for you. This bad thing happened to you. You're sad, and now I'm sad too as your friend." And we think that being sad with someone is actually an act of kindness. They will feel better because we're both sad now. But actually, that's not the case. What they need is you to feel happy, you to feel neutral. You'd accept whatever happens, and with them, not be the neighbors crying, good, it's bad, it's good, it's bad. Not to go there, to accept, to be supportive, to remain in that state of support, but not sorrow. There's a difference between being supportive and being sad, right? And we can come back to that if you want. But the idea is, for yourself and for other people, you accept what's happened, and you stay in the possibility that you don't know whether that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing. All right. So, and relative to this question on empathy, yes, we can certainly empathize, but empathy doesn't mean that we become sad. Empathy means we understand what they're going through. So this is a subtle point here, but it's important. The idea and the reason this story is told so many times is that we really don't know when something is good fortune or bad fortune. So point 2 is be here now and accept each moment without judgment. Okay, so point 3. Encourage your friends always. And this includes your neighbors, this includes your children, this includes your parents. And this kind of ties to this last point and that last story. What do they need from us? They need our encouragement. And I would say we need to encourage ourselves too. When things turn bad, if we make a commitment to only be encouraging, we make that promise, I'm only going to be encouraging no matter what, no matter how bad it is. I'm not going to go over to the other side. We don't even realize the gift that we're giving to someone. I'm going to share another story with you. This is also a well-known story. You may have heard this before, but it makes this point I want to make about encouragement. So this is about 2 men in the hospital. So there were 2 men, both seriously ill, and they occupied the same hospital room. One man was allowed to sit up in his bed for an hour each afternoon to help drain the fluid from his lungs. His bed was next to the room's only window. The other man had to spend all his time flat on his back. The men talked for hours on end. They spoke of their wives and families, their homes, their jobs, their involvement in the military service, where they had been on vacation. Every afternoon, when the man in the bed by the window could sit up, he would pass the time by describing to his roommate all the things he could see out the window. The man in the other bed began to live for those 1 hour periods where his world would be broadened and enlivened by all the activity and color of the world outside. The window overlooked a park with a lovely lake. Ducks and swans played on the water, while children sailed their model boats. Young lovers walked arm in arm amidst flowers of every color, and a fine view of the city's skyline could be seen in the distance. As the man by the window described all of this in exquisite detail, the man on the other side of the room would close his eyes and imagine this picturesque scene. One warm afternoon, the man by the window described a parade passing by. Although the other man could not hear the band, he could see it in his mind's eye as the gentleman by the window portrayed it with descriptive words. Days, weeks, and months passed by. One morning, the day nurse arrived to bring water for their baths. only to find the lifeless body of the man by the window, who had died peacefully in his sleep. She was saddened and called the hospital attendants to take the body away. As soon as it seemed appropriate, the other man asked if he could be moved next to the window. The nurse was happy to make the switch, and after making sure he was comfortable, she left him alone. Slowly, painfully, he propped himself up on one elbow to take his first look at the real world outside. He strained to slowly turn to look out the window beside the bed. It faced a blank wall. The man asked the nurse what could have compelled his deceased roommate, who had described such wonderful things, outside this window. The nurse responded that the man was blind and couldn't even see the wall. She said, "Perhaps he just wanted to encourage you." So, why am I sharing this story with you? It's a nice story, isn't it? So, there's so much going on in that story. I mean, one thing that's going on that I wanted to focus on today is that what did the man that wasn't by the window need? What did he need? He didn't need to have reinforced our bad luck that we're both in the hospital, right? That wouldn't have been so helpful. But what he needed was he needed encouragement. He needed to have something to uplift him. He needed something to look forward to. That was the basis of their friendship, this upliftment and encouragement, with him not even knowing that the gift that his friend was giving him by the window was a gift from inside. It wasn't that he was describing the details of the parade. The parade didn't even happen. The pond wasn't even there. No ducks. But once the man by the window created that possibility in his mind and shared that with his friend, now he's really given a gift. We can all do this, right? Each of us has the ability to share with those around us, especially those who are losing altitude, those who are getting heavy or sad or disappointed, something that lifts them up. That's a great gift. Now, it doesn't require that there actually be anything outside that's making that happen, but it does require that our inner state remains stable and happy, which is why I started with remember who you are. Because if you are in your state of natural happiness and natural peace of mind, and someone comes near you and they're heavy, you have that gift. You have the ability to share with them that encouragement. And that's what everybody needs right now, right? They need that encouragement. They need that upliftment. They need us to hold them up a little bit. So that's number 3, right? Encourage your friends. And I would say encourage everybody, right? Encourage your friends, but encourage everybody, your family, your neighbors, people to meet. Encourage everybody. We all need it right now. Okay, number 4. So if number 3 was encourage your friends, what's number 4? Forgive your enemies. Forgive everybody. Now, when we started and I said, turn inside, and you can see your heart. You can feel your heart. Now, for a lot of us, when we turn inside and feel the heart, some of what's in the heart feels heavy. Sometimes when we turn inside, we have a little bit of heaviness there. And that can come from holding on to something from the past. All of us have a very long memory track inside. And everything that's happened to us lives somewhere on that memory track. And we've got the good things, the happy memories, the things that really put a smile on our face. And then we have the disappointing things, the sad things, and especially the things where we feel someone let us down, or worse, that someone harmed us. Now, when we hold on to this idea that someone has really harmed me, someone did something so unforgivable, so harmful to me that I will never forget, and I will never forgive them. Now, when we hold that mental stance, who is in bondage? I am in bondage, right? Because I'm holding on to this thing from the past where someone has harmed me. Now, I'll tell you a story. I was giving a talk in the Caribbean years ago, and making a similar point. It wasn't the same topic, but similar point. And this woman came up to me at the break and she said, you know, I have that hard feeling about my mother-in-law. And I said, oh, that's too bad. And she said, yeah, she's treated me very badly. She treats her own daughter so preferentially, and she treats me so poorly. I mean, if I come, I'm always the one asked to work. She often doesn't even invite me. She treats me bad in public in front of others. She said, it's been that way for a very long time. And I said, well, I am so sorry. That's got to be very painful. So does she live near you? And she said, oh, she's been dead for 35 years. What? For 35 years, you've been carrying around this hard feeling? I said, you must end it right away. Liberate yourself. Get out your scissors, your inner scissors, and cut that bondage. And not only cut the bondage, not only, liberate yourself from the pull, but you must forgive her. And she looked at me like, there's no way. There is no way that I can forgive her. Not after what she's done. So we talked about it, and about what are you really doing when you forgive someone? For one thing, you're letting them out of your heart, right? Because a ghost has been living in your heart for, in her case, 35 years. She'd had a ghost in her heart. And every time she went inside, here was her mother-in-law as an animated figure doing bad things. Now, why is this harmful? Well, for one thing, it leaves you feeling heavy. For another thing, it prevents you from having any meditation, really, because when you go inside, instead of being able to connect with your true self or connect with the divine, you're connecting with your former mother or your mother-in-law, even your dead mother-in-law. And what kind of a meditation is that? Right? We don't realize how we harm ourselves by not forgiving. We are the ones who pay a huge price for this. Now, it's also true that when we forgive that one, they are liberated, right? But we also release them. And if they're still around, great. You don't need to go tell them. You don't need to write them a letter or call them up or drive over to their house and tell them, hey, I know I've been angry all these years, but guess what? I'm finished. You don't have to do that. You can do this as an inner activity in the heart. Because what you're doing is the soul is saying, I'm finished with this. I'm not going to hold this any longer. So the soul is cutting this invisible rope that's been holding you to, in this case, your mother-in-law. So what does that forgiveness sound like? Now, everybody has to use their own language, right? But it might sound something like this. So you might say, and you might bring them in front of you. Now, you can bring anybody in front of you. Do you know how to do that? You don't have to go see them. So if you have a pure thought for someone, and if you've got your heart cleaned and your mind stable, it works better. You can actually invoke that soul to come in front of you. And you'll kind of see the face of the person, but you'll really feel the being inside. So you bring them in front, and you'll say to them something like, you know, I want to forgive you and release you from this feeling I've been having about the thing that you did whenever long ago. It must be that you did what you felt you had to do. It must be at the time you thought it was the right thing to do. But whatever reason that you had, I am releasing you from that. I'm not holding any more bad feelings about that. I completely forgive you for what happened, and I have only good wishes for you. And then you have to really have good wishes. This does not work if you're thinking you're a creep and I'm just doing this because I have to, right? It won't work. You have got to truly feel good wishes. Really may things go well for you. All right? You want to try it? So we'll have a little practice. So I want you to just sit so you're alert. Because this can be a little tricky, so I want to make sure you've got it. So right now you're focused outside. I want you to take your focus from the outside and turn it inside. So whatever your eyes are looking at, fine, but I want you to turn your attention inside. So now you are facing inside. And you notice your heart. And you feel that there's a little bit of heaviness maybe that's still in the heart. And we're going to come back to that in a minute, the heart. Now you go to your mind and you stabilize the mind. Get the mind to stop jumping around and be very still. The mind is very stable. It's only going to focus on one thing. Connect with your breath. Notice how it's supporting you in the background. It's going out and coming in. Follow it for a few breaths because it'll quiet you down. Move to the seat of the soul, which you know is right behind the eyes. Realize this is where the true self sits. And now turn your attention to your heart. And realize that as soon as you forgive this one, this heaviness is going to leave your heart. Now hold a very pure thought. You, the soul, behind the eyes, hold a very pure thought. And the pure thought is, I am going to forgive this one and release this one. So with that very pure thought, no other thoughts, just that pure thought, bring that one in front of you. And they will come. You're invoking them to come in front of you. So allow it to happen. You're pulling them in front of you with your very pure thought. And in a moment, you see that they're there. And for some of you who don't do it visually, you will feel that they're there. And don't let any bad feeling come. Don't let anything from the past come. Look at the soul and send only thoughts of forgiveness. And say in your heart, I completely forgive you for what happened. I know that at the time, you must have felt it was what you had to do. And I did take sorrow from this. But now I want to become free from this. And I completely forgive you for what happened. And I wish you the very best. May things go well for you. And then send the vibration of forgiveness and good wishes. Don't let anything else come in. And now release them and let them go. And the last thing you do is fill your heart with love. Turn your attention back to your heart and fill your heart with love. And now come back. So this business of forgiving, it includes us, right? We have to not only forgive other people, we have to forgive ourselves. Sometimes the hardest thing we do is hold ourselves responsible for something and not forgive ourselves for that. And that will hold us back. That will prevent us from being free. It will prevent us from connecting with the divine. It'll prevent us from living a full life. So that little practice we just did, you can do it in your own way. But the key is that you have to have a completely pure thought. It can't be sullied in any way. All right? So that's number 4. Forgive your enemies. In fact, forgive everybody. Forgive yourself. Forgive anyone who's ever harmed you. And hold those pure good wishes in your heart. Okay, and number 5, the last opportunity space, count your blessings. The quickest route to contentment is gratitude. I would bet a lot of you already do this, because for a lot of people, this is their fundamental practice. But it starts with the way that you see, right? You look around you and you see with appreciation. And this is a little tricky because sometimes when you're looking at someone, what's loudest in them is what you don't like about them, right? Sometimes that's what screams at us. But if we can look past that to the thing we do like about them, and there's almost always something lovely in each one, if we can look at that and appreciate that. Same with our homes, same with our jobs, same with our everything, right? There's always things about it that annoy us. And it's a pattern of mind. Criticism is a pattern of the mind. It's a habit of the heart. And we can change that. You know, we don't have to be, you're not born a critical person, right? Babies don't, your 1-year-old doesn't walk around telling you off, do they? Walk around saying, well, I don't like the way you've got the furniture. I don't like lunch. I mean, you know, that's not the nature of the being. The nature of the being is acceptance and appreciation. And so sometimes if we've been too disappointed in our lives, we may have developed a habit of disappointment or criticism. And then we're unhappy. It makes our hearts unhappy. We pay a price for that. So this last one is to cultivate this habit of appreciation, gratitude. Some people actually start their day with a little list of things they are grateful for, or they end their day that way. It's like the 2 men in the hospital room, right? The one by the window, he could have said, I'm blind, I'm dying, you know, this is pretty dreadful. And he could have spent the whole time that way. Instead, he's seeing parades and city skylines. And instead, he's serving the one in the bed next to him. Who's the first beneficiary of that? Not the guy in the bed next to him, right? Again, we harm ourselves just like we harm ourselves with our blame of people. We harm ourselves with our critical thoughts. Over and over, we harm the heart. We harm the mind. So in this time of opportunity, when we're here working this inner space, count your blessings. Realize just how hugely lucky you are, how much beauty there is in your life, how much benefit there is in your life, how much opportunity there is in your life. Thank you. I think the most used icon on social media is that little namaste sign, right? Thank you. Thank you. So this allows you to have all you need. It allows you to have the relationship with the self, allows you to have a relationship with everyone else. It allows you to have a relationship with the divine. So let's go through the 5, and then I'm going to see if you want to chat about anything in particular. So one is, before we start, it's just to notice that we are in a most unusual moment. The outer world is really struggling. And so if we are attached to the outer world, we will struggle. If our day is made up of every single new figure on the coronavirus or new prediction on the economy, we will be in a lot of distress. So the opportunity is to turn inside and cultivate, use the time to cultivate this inner capacity, this inner power, this inner wisdom. And so I'm suggesting 5 moves. There are probably 105, but I'm offering 5 for us to work with. So the first one is, and the foundation, remember who you are. You are not the title. You are not just mom or grandmother or policeman or attorney or doctor or advertising executive or whatever. All of that, those are the roles you're playing. Who are you? You are this glorious, eternal, lovely, patient, beautiful, kind, peaceful, generous being inside. That is your nature. And anything else that's going on with you is not really you. It's something that's come in and is not paying rent, but is hanging out inside. So remember who you are and keep returning to that. That's got to be your daily practice. So remember who you are. Second, be here now and accept every moment without judgment. Not so easy, right? Not so easy, but that's why this Chinese farmer story is so beloved, because we've all had the good news, bad news joke as part of our lives, something that just seemed like the end of the world that actually opened a door. So be here now and accept every moment without judgment. Number 3, encourage your friends. Don't think that you getting sad because they're sad, or you getting angry because they're angry, is the greatest act of love. It is an act of solidarity, but it's not necessarily an act of love. And I would argue that love is a higher value than just mere solidarity. Because what they need right then is the best of you. They need a lift. Like the man in the bed, not next to the window. What did he need? He needed something to live for. He needed something. He hung out waiting for that 1 hour when he got that description of the world. That's what people want from us. They want that encouragement. Number 4, forgive everybody. Forgive everyone. Don't let anything stick in your heart. There is no benefit to them, and there's really no benefit to you. So forgive everybody. And then number 5, count your blessings. Be in gratitude. Notice all the wonderful things that are happening for you and for others. All right, let me stop there and see if there's anything you want to talk about. I think Ansia may facilitate this.
Thank you so much, Sister Judy. And here we have a couple of questions. So one of the questions is, what about support?
What about
Doesn't support,
support?
doesn't it include empathy? That is one question.
Mhm. It
So
does. It does include empathy. I think it's a good question. What does it mean to be an image of support? You know, what does it mean? Some people are the kind of people that everybody goes to. Do you notice that? There's some people, and you may be one of those people. If they have an office desk, everybody's hovering around the desk, or everyone stops by their house to talk. I mean, there are some people who others really experience as an image of support. And I would argue that empathy is part of it. It starts with empathy. I really understand what you're going through. You know, I've been through that myself. Or maybe I can't fully understand it. I haven't been through it, but I really have a lot of compassion for where you are. But the trick is, what do you do next? After you have expressed, or even first felt and then expressed, I get what's going on for you, or I have compassion for what's going on for you, what's your next move? If your next move is, isn't it terrible? Isn't the world unfair? Didn't this happen to you before? Isn't this the third or fourth time you've had this kind of sad thing happen? That's terrible, right? There's that response. Or there is, you know what? Things can really turn a corner here for you now. I actually know of someone in a similar situation who actually had wonderful things come out of that time, or I had wonderful things, or you have such persistent, beautiful qualities that I know you're going to get through this. I have a friend right now whose husband is dying of cancer. He was diagnosed 2 years ago, and she has been really the most lovely traveling companion with him. And I got an email yesterday saying that he knows he doesn't have long left, but he's got a list of people that he wants to have a one-on-one conversation with, and could each of us sign up for a time? And I thought, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing to help him facilitate his last leg of the journey in such a way that it's all about conversations with those who love him. So it's not that we don't have empathy. We do have empathy. But it's not that because someone's in that place that we have to go into sorrow or what you might call a state of rapport around anger or disappointment and amplify their disappointment. What you want to do is amplify the sense of possibility, amplify the sense of what might happen that might turn a corner and be wonderful. Or if it's the end of the road, how lovely and valuable has your life been? What a beautiful life you've had. What an honor it's been for me to be in your life. Thank you. Right?
Okay. Okay, the other question, there's another question. When to forgive and when to forget?
You're treating those as separate, when to forgive and when to forget?
No.
Is that the question?
Yes, that is the question. Usually there is a saying that forget and forgive. Sorry,
Right.
forgive and forget. And then sometimes people use, you have to forgive, but you should never forget. So there is
Right.
another.
Well, to be honest, I think it's hard for things to erase things in the memory track. I don't know about you, but if something happened, it's very hard for me to kind of do the surgery to remove it like it never happened. I think let's start first with forgive and then let's go to forget. So I think we forgive as soon as we can manage it. And we may not be able to manage it in the moment. I would say that ascended, these elevated souls can manage it in the moment. They don't take offense, right? Those of you who knew Dadi Janki or the Dalai Lama or whoever your favorite elevated person is, you realize they don't hold those things. They don't even let them in, actually. We may not be so skilled at that. Something may have entered our heart and it may be lodged there. But I would say as soon as we feel we can manage to forgive, because we are held hostage by that. We are the ones who are suffering. We are the ones who got the heaviness from it. We're the ones who are prevented. We're not in true freedom as long as we've got that rope with us and that person. As long as the thought comes back about what they did to us and the injury, that cycle of memory and arousing again the feeling of disappointment or fear or whatever, that's holding us hostage. So as soon as we feel we can manage, we forgive them. And as I say, I think you've got to forgive them completely. You can't do a provisional forgiveness. If only you'd say sorry, I would forgive you. You can't do that. They may not be able to say sorry. They may be oblivious. They may be so lost in their own life. That doesn't matter. They don't have to do anything. If they have to do something for you to forgive them, you're still in bondage. Right? You're waiting around for them to do something so you can be liberated. It's got to be that you can forgive them whether they do anything or not. So I forgive you completely. You must have thought at the time that that's what you had to do. Okay. I forgive you. I release you completely from that. May your life go well. Blessings, good wishes for you. And really mean it. Really, really mean it. So that's the forgiveness part. Now the forgetting, I find that the only way that I've ever been able to really forget is to pull the mind back every time it goes there. You could call it a full stop. So every time the mind, because the mind has a habit of going there, right? You've been thinking about this for however long. In the case of the story I told you, 35 years, for her mother-in-law. Every time the mind starts to go there, you stop it. You don't let your mind think about it, because when your mind goes somewhere, it amplifies that thing. Whatever we think about, we get more of that. That's one of the kind of fundamental laws of the way the mind works. So if you dwell on joy, you get more joy. If you dwell on resentment, you get more resentment. So you don't let your mind go there. You've seen the picture of the charioteer with the senses, right? I mean, you've got to rein the mind in and not let it wander back there. That's how forgetting happens. And eventually, if you don't let it go there, the memory gets more and more and more fades. You don't ever go there intentionally. If someone reminds you of them, you cut the thought and stop it and come back. That's how you forget. I don't know of another surgery.
Okay, there is, in connection with this question, there is another question. What it says is it forgive from inside, or we have to go to them and tell them that we forgive them? And another question, does forgiveness mean that I have to deal with them again, with family?
Well, if you live with them, you know, for some people, the enemy lives right in the house, right? So let's deal with those separately. No, you don't have to go tell them, because your forgiveness, this is about the invisible bond. We started with remember who you are, right? You aren't the body. You aren't the relationships. You're the being inside. The being inside is going to forgive. So this is about the heart. This is the heart. Sometimes the heart has a big cable connecting us with somebody or something. A big, strong cable. It's like a bondage. And we're always aware of them. It's like when the mind goes quiet, in comes this person into our mind. And it's like they occupy, it's like they're a ghost in there. Somehow they got in and they're not paying rent. They're just living in there and occupying the mind. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to untie that bond or cut it and let them free. That's a completely internal process. This has nothing to do with the outside. You are really getting your heart to let go of that ghost and remove them from the heart. So this is an inner process that you're doing. Now, if you additionally want to write something, I suppose you can, but honestly, that can backfire. Because sometimes if you say to someone, I forgive you, and they say, who are you to forgive me? Right? You're the one I'm angry with. So I probably wouldn't do that if it were me. I probably would not do anything on the outside. It's an inner thing that you're working with. It's inner freedom. So I wouldn't drive over there. What was the other part of the question?
Uh, does it help to confront the person if she is wrong? Is that part of processing the unforgiveness?
No, not part of it. Because, the premise of the forgiveness is that at the time, it's the same with ourselves. To help to understand it better, think of yourself. Think of a mistake you made. When you make a mistake, when you disappoint someone and you disappoint yourself, perhaps, at the time you did it, you felt you had to do it. It's almost always true that when we did something with someone or harmed them in some way or did something that we blame ourselves for, um, we thought we had to do that. I met a guy once who was telling me that he could not forgive himself because when he was a young man, his father died, and he was left the responsibility of finding a husband for his sister. And so he did make a match. He found a husband for the sister, but it turned out that the husband was an alcoholic. And he said, all of this years she's had to live with this alcoholic. It's all my fault. And so I'm saying to him, well, did you do your best? I mean, at the time, did you do what you thought you had to do? Yeah. I mean, that's at the moment, that's what you felt you had to do. So that's all you can do, is you can say, at the moment, that's what I thought I had to do. It was the same for the person who harmed you. At the moment, that's what they thought they had to do for whatever reason. Let it go. For whatever reason, you felt you had to do that, or I felt I had to do it. I'm over that now. I forgive myself. I forgive them. I release you completely from any further obligation. Blessings to you. May things go well for you.
Okay, there is a couple of more questions. How can I bring real love in my life? How we experience more love from inside?
Well, you are loving. We are all naturally loving. It is our nature. If we're not feeling loving, we may not feel lovable. Sometimes we somehow thought we weren't lovable, and we go a long way down the path of life trying to get love from the outside. So I think to start with the confidence that you are completely lovable, irresistible, adorable in the eyes of your father, and in your own eyes, you have to be clear that you are completely lovable. Um, what happens to us, the reason that we become peaceless or without enough love, is other things are on top of that love. Something is obscuring it. It's like static that's on top. And that's what we have to clear away. That's why I'm talking about things like forgiveness, not dwelling in the bad stuff, etc. Because all that stuff obscures us from the natural gifts. The human being, that the soul, human being, right? You've got the body, the human, and you've got the being, the soul. The being is naturally loving. You don't have to go look for it, and no one needs to confirm it with you, but your experience may have been that you weren't loving or weren't lovable, and therefore you have to remove that what's on top of that, which you can do in lots of ways, but we're out of time. I would just say that you have to know that you are completely lovable, and you have to not let other stuff come on top. This requires a strong mind and a strong heart.
Okay, one last question. So how do you help someone else control their thoughts?
Help someone else control their thoughts. Well, we can't really help someone else control their thoughts. What we can do, remember when we did the exercise where you pulled someone in front of you? Now, we used it to forgive them, but you can do lots of things once you pull someone in front of you. And one of the things you can do is you can send them love and encouragement. You don't have to forgive them once you've got them in front of you. Now, this is, I'm telling you things that require a little bit of skill. If you haven't started meditating, well, that's your first step. But assuming that you're on this call because you're a meditator, then what you're doing is pure thoughts, which is what we're talking about. Pure thoughts can invoke a soul. It can invoke a soul in ways that the soul is open to you. So if you want to help a soul who's trapped in their own dark thoughts, You can, at the end of your meditation every morning, you can have this time where you make sure you're stable in the very purest thoughts. You can invoke that soul. Now, what's important is, ideally, the purity is coming from the divine through you to the soul. That's the most powerful, if you can manage that. So it comes from the divine to you and from you to the soul who's in front of you. Your pure thoughts are going to that soul. So if what they need is light, if what they need is love, if what they need is peace, if what they need is courage, if what they need is kindness, if what they need is patience, whatever they need, that's what you're sending. No strings attached. You're just sending that. And then when you're finished, you release them. Now they've got to do their own work, right? They have to overcome their own patterns, etc. But that's the way you can provide some support.
Thank you so much, Sister
All right.
Judy.
Thank you so much. It was lovely to be with you. Bye-bye. Good luck.
And it was profound. It was really rich, and everyone enjoyed. I'm seeing a lot of comments thanking you, and
Thanks
it was
all
really.
of you. It was wonderful to have this time with you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, good evening, good day, whatever day part you're in. Om Shanti.
Can we, Judy, thank you so much. It was lovely and really tons of comments thanking you, lots of blessings. Can we just end with a minute of silence as is our...
Let's do.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Judy.
Thanks
Really
to all of you.
comments for the current times.
Om Shanti.